Look at what happens when government vaults are finally cracked open. These aren't just old documents, they are forbidden objects deemed too dangerous for the public eye. One item in particular has been kept in total darkness because of what it does to the human mind. Join us and let's discover the top items locked away for decades. Let's go!
Number 13. The Stolen Room, the Amber Room's 500 million disappearance. Picture a room built entirely from amber. Not decorated with amber, built from it. 6 tons of the material. Panels carved and fitted into walls, backlit by candlelight, lined with gold leaf and mirrors reflecting infinity in every direction. The Amber Room was constructed in Prussia in the early 18th century and later gifted to Russia, installed in the Catherine Palace outside St. Petersburg. For 200 years, it was called the 8th wonder of the world. Then came World War II. In 1941, German forces dismantled the Amber Room panel by panel and transported it east to Königsberg Castle. In 1944, as Allied forces closed in, the room vanished. Crates were packed under armed guard. Tunnels were sealed with explosives. Witnesses reported loading operations conducted in total secrecy. And then, nothing. No trace. The Amber Room has never been recovered. Decades of coordinated searches across Germany, Poland, and Russia have produced nothing conclusive. Some historians believe it was destroyed in Allied bombing raids in 1945, melted into rubble. Others believe it was loaded into a mine shaft, a hidden bunker, a sealed chamber somewhere beneath Eastern Europe, and that it is still there, sitting in perfect darkness, waiting. Today, a meticulous replica stands in the Catherine Palace. Every tourist who photographs it is technically looking at a copy. The original is behind a locked door that no one has located. Estimated value today, over $500 million. Sealed by war, still missing. And the clock on finding it has been running for 80 years.
Number 12. The Stasi Files and East Germany's Total Surveillance. Between 1950 and 1990, the East German Ministry for State Security, known as the Stasi, built what historians consider the most comprehensive surveillance apparatus ever constructed. At its peak, the Stasi employed roughly 1 full-time agent for every 63 citizens, but that number excludes the informal network. Ordinary people, neighbors, co-workers, teachers, lovers, family members were recruited to report on each other. Millions of files documented the movements, conversations, relationships, and private lives of ordinary East Germans in granular, suffocating detail. These records were locked inside government buildings throughout the country. In 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell and the regime collapsed overnight, Stasi agents began desperately shredding documents. They didn't finish in time. When citizens stormed the offices, they found rooms packed with paper files, reel-to-reel audio recordings, and bags of partially shredded material. The archives were preserved and eventually opened to the public. People could formally request their own files. Many learned for the first time that the person who had been methodically informing on them for decades was someone they trusted completely. A parent, a spouse, a childhood friend. The files didn't reveal an abstract surveillance state operating somewhere in the distance. They revealed the specific, named betrayals inside specific homes. The psychological damage from those revelations lasted generations. One file, opened decades after being sealed, destroyed a marriage. Another cleared a man branded as a traitor for 20 years. The Stasi is gone. The damage sealed inside those files still walks the streets.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. Are you a naturally curious person? If you're watching, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. This space is made for people like us. To ensure you're always part of this community and receive all our latest discoveries, you just need to do one thing: subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to stay connected with us. Okay, now that you're part of our Legion of the Curious, let's move on to the next item.
Number 11. Winchester Mystery Houses, Sealed and Forgotten Rooms. Sarah Winchester inherited a fortune built on rifles. Her husband, William Winchester, had manufactured the repeating rifle that won the American West. When he died in 1881, Sarah inherited 50% of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, along with an income equivalent to thousands of dollars per day. Then, according to accounts of the time, a medium told her she was being haunted, specifically and personally, by every soul ever killed by a Winchester rifle. The only way to outrun them was to build without stopping, to never let construction end. She bought an 8-room farmhouse in San Jose, California, and began building in 1884. She built for 38 consecutive years without an architect and without a master plan. By her death in 1922, the house had expanded into 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, and staircases that rose directly into sealed ceilings, hallways that dead-ended into solid walls, doors that opened onto 2-story drops with no stairs below. After Sarah died, workers clearing the house discovered rooms that had been built, completely sealed, and never opened again from the outside. Inside one sealed room, they found raw construction materials, as if Sarah had locked it mid-build and simply moved on without explanation. Inside another, a cabinet of personal belongings still untouched. Some rooms had clearly been sealed from the outside intentionally. Sarah Winchester built a labyrinth designed with dead ends that only made sense if you believed something was following you. When the living finally opened the parts she'd sealed, the rooms were exactly as she left them, waiting, unfinished, and utterly without explanation.
Number 10. The Invisible Woman. Joyce Carol Vincent's London apartment sealed for 3 years. In January 2006, bailiffs forced open a locked apartment in North London, expecting to find an empty unit. What they found instead stopped them cold. The remains of a woman named Joyce Carol Vincent lay near her television set. She had been dead since December 2003. For 2 years and 1 month, the door had stayed locked. The world outside kept moving. Joyce did not. What makes this discovery uniquely disturbing isn't the time gap alone, it's how completely invisible the entire thing was. Her rent paid itself automatically through housing benefits. Her utilities stayed active without interruption. Junk mail accumulated silently behind the door. Christmas presents sat wrapped on the floor, placed exactly as she'd left them. And the television still on, playing static. No signal, just noise filling an empty room for over 2 years straight. Joyce Carol Vincent was not a recluse hiding from the world. She had friends, she had coworkers, she had a life that people touched and remembered. And yet, not one person noticed she was gone long enough to knock on that door. The system kept paying her bills. Her neighbors kept walking past. A city of millions failed to see her. The locked apartment didn't create her invisibility. Society already had. If a human being can disappear completely while the world runs on autopilot around her, what exactly is hiding behind the next sealed door on this list?
Number 9. The Voynich manuscript. Carbon dating places its creation somewhere between 1404 and 1438. It's a handwritten book, roughly 240 pages, filled with detailed botanical illustrations of plants that do not exist on Earth, astronomical diagrams arranged in unfamiliar patterns, and sequences of what appear to be human figures submerged in connected tube systems. And every single word across every single page is written in a script or language that no human being has ever successfully decoded. The Voynich manuscript has been systematically attacked by code breakers, linguists, cryptographers, and modern artificial intelligence systems for over a century. Nobody has broken it. During World War II, the top cryptanalysts in Allied intelligence, the exact people cracking the Enigma machine's Nazi codes, attempted to decode the Voynich manuscript in their spare time. They failed completely. The manuscript was acquired by rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich in 1912 from a Jesuit college in Italy, and evidence suggests it had been locked away in the college's restricted collection for centuries before he found it. Theories about its content range from a medieval herbal guide written in an extinct natural language to an elaborate Renaissance-era fraud designed to extract money from collectors. Recent computational analysis suggested the text contains genuine linguistic structure, statistical patterns consistent with a real language rather than random symbols. But structure is not translation. The book sits in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book Library today, fully digitized, freely accessible online to anyone. The locked door isn't physical anymore. It is the language itself. 6 centuries of silence, encoded into ink, and not one person on Earth has found a key.
Number 8. The Nazi Gold Train, the sealed tunnel in the Polish mountains nobody can explain. In early 1945, as Soviet forces pushed westward through occupied Poland at terrifying speed, Nazi units were reportedly loading a heavily armored train with gold bars, looted valuables, and weapons, and moving it through a network of underground tunnels carved through the Owl Mountains in Lower Silesia, a region then part of Germany, now southwestern Poland. Multiple credible witnesses claim to have watched the train enter a specific tunnel. Not one credible witness reported seeing it exit. Accounts from the period describe the tunnel entrance being sealed with explosive charges as Nazi forces retreated eastward. The train was left underground. For 70 years, the story occupied the uncomfortable space between documented regional legend and unverified rumor. Then, in 2015, two men, one Polish, one German, formally filed a legal claim with Polish authorities, stating they had located the train using ground-penetrating radar technology. They submitted preliminary scan data. The claim immediately triggered a full-scale international response with professional geophysical surveys of the area. Those surveys identified significant subsurface anomalies in multiple locations, readings consistent with a large metallic structure buried underground. Subsequent direct excavation found no train at the primary site. The anomalies themselves remain scientifically unexplained. The tunnels in the Owl Mountains are real, extensively documented, and physically present. The wartime loading accounts are documented in multiple independent sources. The geophysical scans registered something. Whatever is underground in those Polish mountains, sealed behind tons of rock and 80 years of silence, has never been conclusively identified. The tunnel is still there. The mystery is still sealed inside it.
Number 7. The Sealed Mine, the 1907 Monongah disaster, and the tunnels never reopened. On the morning of December 6, 1907, a coal mine in Monongah, West Virginia, exploded. The blast was powerful enough to be felt several miles away. When the dust settled, at least 362 miners were confirmed dead, though historians believe the actual number was significantly higher because the company had not been keeping accurate records of exactly who was underground at the time of detonation. It remains the deadliest mining disaster in American history. In the immediate aftermath, rescue teams fought through lethal gas and structurally compromised tunnels to reach survivors. Certain sections of the mine were too dangerous to enter at all. The decision was made to seal them permanently. Collapsed shafts, toxic gas buildup, catastrophic structural failure. The sealed tunnels weren't a temporary measure pending future investigation. They were a final one. For decades, no one went back. When safety inspectors and historical surveyors eventually accessed some sealed sections many years later, they found the tunnels exactly as the disaster had left them. Personal belongings still sitting in place, lunch pails, boots, hand tools, handwritten markings scratched into the walls. Some of those markings were made by men who never walked back out. The sealed sections of the Monongah mine became, without anyone planning or designing it, one of the most authentic memorials in American history. Not a monument commissioned by committees, a moment locked in place by catastrophe, and still waiting underground, untouched, for a rescue that never came.
Number 6. The Paris apartment sealed untouched since 1940. Somewhere in the 9th arrondissement of Paris, a front door hadn't been opened in 70 years. The woman who owned the apartment, Madame Marthe de Florian, fled the city in June 1940 when German forces occupied France. She locked the door behind her and never came back. She kept paying rent from her home in the south of France for 7 decades without ever stepping foot inside again. She died at 91, still paying, still not returning. When auctioneers entered the apartment in 2010 to settle her estate, they walked directly into 1940. Furniture buried under decades of compacted dust. Crystal perfume bottles still standing on the vanity. A stuffed ostrich positioned in the corner of a room. Toys scattered across the floor exactly as a child had left them 7 decades before. And then, leaning against a wall in the back room, still in its original frame, an unknown painting. A portrait of a woman in a rose-colored gown, later identified as Madame de Florian's grandmother, painted by Italian artist Giovanni Boldini. The painting sold at auction for over 2 million euros. Nobody had seen it since before the war. The apartment wasn't abandoned through neglect or accident. It was sealed by fear at one specific moment in history, the exact moment war arrived at the city gates. The door froze everything the instant it clicked shut. Time didn't pass inside that room, it simply stopped. And right now, somewhere across Paris, there are other doors that haven't been touched since.
Number 5. The Doomsday Box, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault sealed emergency deposits. 400 feet inside a frozen mountain on a Norwegian Arctic island, positioned roughly halfway between the Norwegian mainland and the North Pole, there is a vault containing the most important agricultural collection on Earth. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault holds over 1.3 million seed samples, backup duplicates of seeds from gene banks worldwide, representing hundreds of thousands of distinct plant varieties. The seeds are stored at -18 degrees Celsius inside a mountain that remains naturally frozen, even if the artificial refrigeration systems fail entirely. It was engineered to survive nuclear war, climate collapse, and civilizational failure. But here's the part most people don't know. Inside the vault, alongside the globally shared deposits, are sealed black boxes that belong exclusively to individual countries and gene banks. Nobody else holds the key to those boxes. In 2015, Syria's National Gene Bank, operating out of an active war zone, became the first institution in history to make a formal emergency withdrawal from Svalbard. Years of conflict had destroyed their local seed supply. They needed the genetic blueprint to rebuild their entire agricultural system from scratch. The seeds they withdrew had been sealed inside that Arctic mountain before the war started. When the boxes were opened, they contained the agricultural foundation of a nation reduced to rubble. Somewhere inside that frozen mountain right now, sealed black boxes hold the crop futures of countries currently experiencing famine, war, and governmental collapse. The vault doesn't just store seeds, it stores the possibility of recovery after the worst imaginable outcome.
Number 4, the last sealed plague, the frozen vials that could still end modern civilization. Right now, in 2 government-approved laboratories on opposite sides of the Earth, something is alive inside sealed vials stored at temperatures far below freezing. At the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Vector Institute in Novosibirsk, Russia. What is alive inside those vials is smallpox, the disease that killed an estimated 300 million human beings in the 20th century alone. 300 million. That is more than the entire current population of the United States, dead from a single pathogen within a single century. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox officially eradicated from the wild. The vaccination campaigns had worked. Every known case on Earth had been eliminated. The virus existed only in those 2 officially sanctioned, sealed laboratories. And this is where the open loop from the beginning of this video finally closes. The question was never whether smallpox is locked away. It is. The question, the one that keeps biosecurity experts and intelligence agencies operating at a sustained level of controlled anxiety, is whether those 2 labs hold the only surviving samples. In 2014, forgotten vials of smallpox were discovered inside an unsecured storage room at an FDA laboratory in Maryland. They had been sitting there, sealed but completely untracked, for decades. Nobody knew they existed. If forgotten smallpox vials materialized inside a United States government facility, how many more are sitting in unlabeled freezers scattered across the former Soviet Union, in facilities that haven't been audited since the 1980s? The most dangerous things on Earth aren't the ones locked in high-security vaults. They're the ones sealed in places nobody has thought to look.
Number 3, the Shepherd's Stone, the Dead Sea Scrolls hidden in clay jars for 2,000 years. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd searching for a lost goat near the Dead Sea threw a rock into a cave. He heard pottery shatter. He climbed inside and found something that would violently disrupt the entire field of biblical scholarship forever. Inside the cave were large clay jars sealed with fitted lids, and inside those jars were ancient scrolls wrapped in linen. These documents, later known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, dated from roughly the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. That's 2,000 years sealed inside ceramic jars in a desert cave. Think about that scale. These scrolls contain some of the oldest known copies of Hebrew biblical texts ever recovered. When researchers finally compared them against modern versions of the same texts, the results shook academic institutions worldwide. The texts were nearly identical. Across 2 millennia, through kingdoms rising and collapsing, through translation, persecution, and war, the words had barely changed. This directly dismantled the argument that religious scriptures had been heavily altered or manipulated over centuries. But the story doesn't end with discovery. The scrolls were locked away again. For decades after their finding, access was tightly restricted. Some scholars were denied permission to study them entirely. The reasons given were never fully transparent. An ancient library sealed in a cave for 2,000 years, and when it finally came to light, humans immediately locked it away again. The obsession with controlling what people know seems to be the one thing that never changes regardless of the century.
Number 2, the CIA Black Vault and Project MK Ultra. During the Cold War, the United States intelligence community classified millions of documents related to operations so dark they couldn't survive public exposure. Experiments so illegal they had to stay buried. These records lived in secure government facilities known collectively as the Black Vault, sealed from public access for decades behind layers of classification and bureaucratic stone walls. Beginning in the 1970s, journalists and researchers used the Freedom of Information Act to chisel cracks into those walls. What came out destroyed any remaining illusion about what governments do in the dark. Project MK was the most devastating revelation. For over a decade, the CIA ran a covert program of non-consensual human experimentation. Subjects were dosed with LSD without their knowledge or consent. Some were subjected to electroshock, sensory deprivation, and psychological manipulation specifically designed to fracture the human mind. The stated goal was total mind control, not metaphorical control. Documented, funded, bureaucratically approved attempts to break down human consciousness and rebuild it on command. Many subjects were the most vulnerable people in society: prisoners, mental patients, ordinary citizens who trusted the doctors treating them. When CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the files destroyed in 1973, thousands of documents were shredded, but boxes survived in a filing room nobody thought to check. When those boxes were finally found, the vault cracked open permanently. The locked files didn't contain paranoid fantasy. They contained documented atrocities committed by a real government against real people. Some of those files are still classified today.
Number 1. The Organ Room. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the global reaction was immediate and enormous. But most people don't know about the sealed objects inside the burial chamber that took years longer to properly examine. Among the most extraordinary was the canopic chest, a carved alabaster box sealed with 4 miniature lids, each sculpted into the likeness of the young pharaoh's face. Inside were 4 separate compartments, each containing a small golden coffin. Inside each of those miniature coffins, tightly wrapped in linen strips and preserved with resin, were Tutankhamun's internal organs, his lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines, removed during mummification and preserved separately according to ancient Egyptian funerary ritual. These containers had been sealed in approximately 1323 BCE and never disturbed again. When scientists finally analyzed their contents using modern chemical testing, the results were remarkable. The organs had been treated with a precisely formulated blend of botanical oils and natural resins. The mummification chemistry was so sophisticated, it had preserved recognizable organic tissue across 3,000 years. 3,000 years! The Egyptians sealed those organs fully expecting them to survive eternity, and they were right. But here's what unsettled researchers most. Analysis of Tutankhamun's physical remains also revealed multiple trauma injuries, significant bone abnormalities, and evidence of severe illness. A pharaoh sealed away for 3 millennia, finally forced to surrender his secrets to modern science, and the secrets revealed a short life defined by suffering, physical fragility, and a death that remains genuinely unexplained.
Still curious? Then don't stop now. The next mystery is already waiting for you. Just click the video on screen. I saved it just for you. See you there, curious one.